1. About a few days ago, I went to Facebook Marketplace to sell a ladder. It was in great condition for a great price, so I had a lot of people contact me about it. In the ad, I had posted that I would not be holding it for anyone, as I do all my Marketplace posts because it is assumed that it's a first-come, first-served situation. A lot of people can get uppity about it. I thought having that in the post would save me some hassle. Boy, was I sure wrong about that. Yeah. Now, before I continue with this story, I want to make it known that this is currently an ongoing investigation with the local police, so I can't post real names or the screenshots of the conversations that I saved to show to the police. In the evening of the same day as I posted the ladder, I got a message from someone. Even with their initial greeting, something felt off about this person. Let's call him Mark. Mark's initial message was something along the lines of, "I want this right now and I'm coming to get it. I live near you." For those of you who don't know, Marketplace will post a map of where you are generally located, but not an exact location, of course. I did list my post as pick-up only, and I would never allow anyone to pick anything up while my husband wasn't home. But he usually is, as he works from home, so I usually post things as pick-up only. I was taken aback by Mark's overly eager message, and I responded with telling him that it was still available, but it was too late in the evening and he should contact me tomorrow morning to see if it was still available. Granted, it was about 9 p.m. at this point, and while I know that it's not late for most people, it is for me, as I have a toddler who goes to bed early and wakes up early. Therefore, I go to bed early so that I will be ready for my son's 6 a.m. or earlier wake-up call. In any case, I'm sure most can understand that 9 p.m. would be slightly late for a Marketplace exchange. However, Mark didn't seem to understand this at all. He pushed a few more times, again stating that he wanted it, and that he could come and grab it no problem. After telling him 3 times that now was not a good time, I eventually ignored him and went to bed. When I woke up the next morning, I had a few more messages from Mark from the night before, a couple more saying it was no problem to come grab it then, and a couple more saying that he really wanted this ladder and asked me to hold it for him. My only response was, as it states in my ad, I will not be holding this item, but you are welcome to come grab it this morning if you still want it. If you tell me you're on your way, I will place the ladder on pending for up to 1 hour. Based on where I posted this item, anyone would have plenty of time to get to where I was within 20 minutes or less. So 1 hour was more than adequate time, especially if someone stated they would be on their way. At this point, it was still slightly early, so he had not responded yet. I did have a few other inquiries on my listing waiting for me that morning, so I responded to those. Among those inquiries, I had one person who had offered more than asking, and was messaging me at that moment, and he stated he could be there that morning in 30 minutes. I accepted, he arrived, gave me the money, took the ladder, transaction done, story over. Right? Wrong. A few hours later, Mark re-emerged. By then, I had updated the listing as sold. It says it in bright red letters. He asked if now was a good time to pick up the ladder. Marketplace gives you a few preset responses to use for messages regarding your listing, so I chose the message that said, "This listing has been sold." And what followed is the reason I am writing this story. Mark lost his damn mind. For the next half hour or so, he sent a barrage of insults and threats. Now, normally, I would just block this person and move on with my life. But after the first few insults, he stated that he had been able to figure out my location from the map and my listing, and that he was going to come over to teach me the value of integrity by choking me and watching the life fade from my eyes while my child watched. This, of course, scared me half to death. But something needed to be done. This was a threat on my life, so I didn't block him. I got a screenshot of all his messages, went and informed my husband, and then called the police. Meanwhile, he continued to make insane threats like he was going to set my house on fire, etc. I mean, just a lot of crazy shit was spewing from this man over a damn ladder. His last message stated he was headed down my street. My husband went and peeked out the window to see if there was indeed anyone coming. Even if he did know my street, there would be no way he could know exactly what house I was in. But given the level of crazy this guy was, we weren't so sure. He stayed there until the police arrived and never did end up seeing anyone. When the police did arrive, about 20 minutes later, I gave them all the screenshots. It was at this point they told me to block him and report him to Facebook, so I did. They had a car sit across the street from my house for the majority of the day, and said they would come by a couple times that night to check out the area. They instructed me to let them know if I hear from Mark again, and informed me that they would also be seeking him out. This morning I received a call from the local police, stating that his profile was deleted shortly after I blocked and reported him, so they're having trouble locating him. After I blocked him, the messages were erased so they couldn't get his IP or anything from his messages. Not sure if he did that or if Facebook automatically does it if you block someone. The police stated that they're in contact with Facebook to try and locate this person. It's only been a couple of days and there needs to be a court order, blah blah blah, so I'm hopeful it will be resolved soon. Meanwhile, they will continue to keep an eye on my house and for me to be aware when I leave my house, as Mark does know what I look like from my picture. To those who may ask, Mark's profile picture was of an ocean, so no way for me to identify him from that. My husband and I do have a full ring security system set up at our house, so anyone who is on our property will be caught on camera. At the front door, on the driveway, both side gates, and at the door to the backyard. We live in a corner lot, and have had a few incidents with a neighbor who shares a fence having wild parties, and people coming into our backyard at some point. That's a whole other story, but it's just a little insight as to why we have all the security. We aren't paranoid people, and we live in a usually safe neighborhood. But for now, I jump a little when I hear the alert for rings stating that motion has been detected, because until I hear otherwise, I will assume that Mark is still at our house, looking for a ladder and revenge. 2. I was working at a company for 5 years under a visa. The company had very quickly figured out it was easy to use and abuse people on visas, and proceeded to do just that. I stupidly believed they'd extend my papers. They initially agreed to do just that. A supervisor position opened up. I refused to cover that position without the title. I had essentially been doing that job for the past several years, and I wasn't going to keep doing it without the acknowledgement. Basically, for 2 weeks we had no one supervising us. I refused to do what I had been doing the whole time. It was an empowering moment because I finally snapped and said I was done. The department fell into chaos. There was no one of authority between us and the CEO, and he was getting a great many calls. Finally, he sent down the HR admin assistant to let me know I could apply for the position. It was petty, as he had personally called every other person he wanted to take that position. Both previous supervisors who held that position had recommended me. But okay, I went ahead and submitted a resume and did an interview. They gave me the position but withdrew the offer to renew my papers, which expired in a year. They told me I would have to leave in a year. Okay. 11 months later, the department is running smoothly, but I haven't heard anything about interviews or my replacement. They'd forgotten I was leaving. That's not possible, you say. After all that drama, they couldn't possibly forget. Ha! Turns out they very much did. When I reminded them my visa was set to expire, I was met with anger and denial, because it was my fault somehow. To the point the CEO refused to speak with me or look at me, and HR was begging me to stay and trying to come up with ways I could stay. There was so much denial that no replacement was ever interviewed or trained. I had been working there for so long that I had simply absorbed multiple positions, leaving me as the only one who knew certain things. My last week I sat down with both HR and the CEO to outline everything I did. They were wounded till the end. Never announced I had left, or who was taking over my position as was customary. I knew because I had several friends that still worked there. Where's the malicious compliance, you may ask? The papers were expired and you had to leave. See, by this point, my situation had changed. I didn't inform them of this change. I could have continued to work there. They wanted me to leave, so I was going to leave. As of today, it has been 2 years, and they have been through 4 people in my position. The current supervisor, who had an easily preventable critical incident occur during his watch, one that had never happened in the history of the business, within his first few months, so we'll see how long he lasts. They have had to hire additional staff because the people who replaced me are very busy and unable to manage everything I did. They've also had a 100% turnover in the department through resignations. During my tenure, I had 1 resignation. 3. I work for a passenger boat company. We have 3 tasks while on board. secure the boats for embarking and disembarking, keep an eye out for safety and order, and check tickets and issue fines. A few years ago, the company asked some of the senior staff to temporarily switch to ticket inspector for high season, with the promise to move permanently within a year. Inspectors get a higher pay, and they only do one task, which is checking tickets and issuing fines, a thing that we are already required to do. Some of us say yes, gladly. At the end of the season, our reps contact us and say that we have performed well, so the company is having an examination for our promotion. We say we were assured we would be promoted no matter what. Meanwhile, there's a batch of recent hires who have personal ties with the union and the higher-ups. They aren't very happy with their working conditions. It's a rather tough job, especially in the winter or in the bad weather, and they often find ways to be dispensed from service or apply for desk jobs, and easily obtain them even if unnecessary or redundant. Now, we don't have much choice, so we agree to the exam, and surprise, surprise, pretty much nobody makes the cut. They had to promote too because they knew they got a perfect score, despite the exam being for a job that some of us have been doing for decades. At this point, the company has no choice but to look for qualified people among the more recent hires, and wouldn't you know, pretty much all of those who belong to that category immediately pass. Now, the key detail. After we were failed, we were notified with a letter saying we were unfit for the duties of ticket inspector. The malicious compliance, we took those words to the letter, and we stopped performing the tasks of ticket inspectors, which had been part of our job for years. Either we were fit for a job or we were unfit. We brought our letter with us, and the first few times supervisors tried to write us up for failing to check the tickets, we promptly produced our very much official dispensation. Now, this decreased our workload immensely, letting us breeze through even the tougher shifts with ease, and generally turning our job into quite a pleasant one. But it cost the company a pretty buck in terms of lost revenue, the fines we don't issue, the greater pay gap they had to fill up by using juniors instead of seniors, and the rehiring and retraining of those who still drop out of that job because it's still outdoor work. And some of the people who they hired just weren't suited for it. Now the supervisors don't even bother with us anymore, and I have that rejection letter in a box with other dear memories, like my old D&D character sheets. The cherry on top, a couple months later, their timetable was modified, making them take service at 5 a.m. twice a week. There's no way I could have kept that up. I worked late shifts for most of my career. Dodged that bullet. 4. Yesterday I was at the gym with my friend. I've had minor problems with people there before, but nothing as ridiculous as this. I had been training with my friends since 6 a.m., so the gym was pretty dead. At about 7:30, a woman comes in. There were only 2 other people in the gym at the time, the manager and some other person working out in a different section. The woman checks in and heads downstairs. She passes by my friend and me, who were working out on one of their punching bags. She stops for a second to look at me. At the time, I assumed it was because of my mad kicking skills. This was not the case. A minute or so later, she comes back.
You can't wear that in here.
I was wearing normal workout clothes, waist-high sweatpants, joggers, with a muscle shirt that was a bit short, but because my pants were high, it wasn't revealing anything.
Sorry? You should be sorry. You shouldn't be wearing clothes like that in public. This is a place of God, and you're disgracing it.
The gym was connected to a church.
I bet you're not even here to work out. You're just here to show off your boyfriend.
Pointing to my friend, who was trying not to laugh.
You need to change your shirt. It's too short. Those clothes are not allowed in here.
She tried to continue, but I had an idea, so I cut her off. So, you have a problem with my shirt?
Huh?
Okay, I take off my shirt. I was wearing a sports bra underneath that covered everything, and you could only see an inch of my midriff due to the high-waisted pants. I had worn just a sports bra in here before, so I knew it wouldn't be a problem.
Ah! Put your shirt back on right now. I am going to talk to the owner and get you kicked out.
Great. She storms back up the stairs to the desk where the manager is. I knew I wouldn't be in trouble since I know the manager and he knows me pretty well, since I also teach martial arts classes at the gym. I looked at my friend like, WTF just happened? And he finally just bursts out laughing, so I throw my shirt at him. Karen starts talking to him, but I can't hear what she's saying. I grab my water bottle and sneak up the stairs, and behind her, trying not to be noticed.
That slut down there took her shirt off and exposed herself to me.
Karen was busy yelling at the manager, so she didn't notice me. So behind her, I start pointing to myself and mouthing, "I'm the slut. That's me," to the manager. The manager laughs at me, and Karen yells at him for laughing because
this is not a laughing matter.
I still don't know how she didn't see me. I didn't want to be caught, so I walk down the hall to the water fountain to fill up my water bottle, and when I get back, the Karen is gone. The manager says to me, "Why do you always have to make my job so difficult?" "Because it is fun." "Where did she go?" "She stormed out after I refused to kick you out." "Well, she left her bag downstairs. Do you think I could give it to her when she comes back?" He thinks about it for a second. "No, unfortunately, I have to leave it behind the desk until she claims it." "Dang, all right." I run downstairs to grab the bag and give it to him. My friend and I were there for another hour, and sadly she didn't come back. But I am still overjoyed that I got to experience a wild Karen. And thank you, Malicious Compliance, for giving me the idea of what to do. And next time I'm at the gym, I'll be sure to ask if she came back for her bag. And I will update y'all on what happened. Update. I went back to the gym this morning and I talked to the owner. He said that the woman called to pick up her bag and she came back with her husband. They claimed they were going to sue the gym, which would also be suing the church. The owner informed them that they have a video of the entire event. There was no indecent exposure like the woman was claiming. And I am still a minor, so she backed off on that. They informed her that she was banned from the gym and the incident would be reported to all the other branches of that church. I doubt I will ever see her again. I just wish I could thank her for giving me such an awesome story. 5. I work as a letter carrier in a busy downtown area with sparse street parking. So I always rely on loading zones to get my route done in a timely manner. People in my area are good about keeping these zones clear, but every once in a while there will be a private vehicle parked in one of my go-to spots. Usually the driver is still behind the wheel. More often than not, they're on their phone. I respect that they don't want to text and drive, but I need to get my job done. The mail never stops. A friendly double tap from the horn will almost always send the driver on their way. A few weeks ago, I had a particularly large amount of packages from one of my stops. I knew it was going to be at least 3 trips back to my van from the buildings I had to deliver to. These buildings are located on a one-way street with no parking, but a loading zone is set right at the end of the cross street. This loading zone had a 50-50 chance of being occupied by a work vehicle from one of the buildings. On this day, a small sedan was sitting in the spot idling. Psyched that I was about to score this parking spot on a busy day, I pulled up behind him and did the double tap. Inside the car, I saw the driver throw their hands up in anger, so I pointed towards the loading zone sign. The man in the car jumps out wearing one of those monotone American flag hats and started yelling at me. I had to roll down my window to hear what he was saying.
"I'm a commercial vehicle, I'm allowed to park here."
I looked at his car again, a small sedan with no decals, no fleet stickers, not even a "how am I driving?" How am I supposed to know you're a commercial vehicle?
"I have a sticker on my door. You're interrupting an important phone call when you honk at me."
I can't see your door from here, so you look like any other car to me.
"If you pulled up next to me, you would have seen the sticker."
I had pulled up behind him to grab the space once he left. If I pulled up next to him, I would have blocked him in, so his argument didn't really make sense. I tried to calmly explain this to him, but he was fuming mad and just kept yelling about his sticker and his phone call. He had walked right up to my window, blocking the bus lane. His rage convinced me he must have been allowed to park here. Who would get so angry but defend themselves with so much passion over something as small as a parking space and be lying about it? But I was also annoyed at this whole display. It made me pretty angry. He was still yelling in my window, and a bus was trying to turn onto the street he was standing in. I dropped the argument. He got back in his car. The bus drove away. I went around him, honking my horn the entire time, and found a spot at the other end of the block. I had to do 3 trips as expected, and the spot I parked in added an extra block to each trip. Oh, but that man needed the closer spot to make his phone call in. God forbid he moved to the end of the block. I kept reliving this bizarre argument during my next few stops, happy that I at least didn't let my anger towards him show. I started to feel like maybe he wasn't allowed to park there, maybe he owned a company that had vehicles that could park in loading zones, but he was definitely in a personally owned car. Every time that argument popped back into my head, I hoped that he was still as angry about that honk now that he was in the moment. Maybe his blood pressure would completely burst or something. By the end of my route, I had stopped thinking about it. I was heading to my last park point, a loading zone 4 blocks away from the earlier incident. Guess which car was in the spot? So I pull up behind it, it was empty this time, and called parking enforcement. I reported a private vehicle parked in a loading zone and went to the next open parking spot 2 full blocks away. I finished my route and decided to drive by real quick to see if anything had happened, and sure enough, he had a big ticket on his windshield. So he either had to pay $95 to the city, or spend a few hours of his time going to the courthouse to prove in front of a judge that he was within his right to park there. If only he was calm when talking to me, we both would have had better days. I only wish I could have seen his face when he saw the ticket. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge is Ice Cream, number 41. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. I cannot make words properly today. You've heard me talk of bad tongue days in the past? Well, it's one of them. Just it's not cooperating. Maybe I'll go have some actual ice cream when I'm done. That might help. Okay, with that, I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.